Hello, and welcome to Mr. Timeline. I'm your host, Joseph, and today we're going to be talking about the top 10 horror movie villains. These villains are villains that really, truly make the horror film what it is. These are from films ranging from thrillers to full-out supernatural horror. Now, there is going to be spoiler warning ahead, obviously, because these are going to be the villains. So usually the villains in these films don't show up till the end of the film. Sometimes it's sooner, but for the most part don't really show up until the end of the film. But with that being said, that has been your spoiler warning, and here are the top 10. Number 10. Evil Ash from Army of Darkness. Evil Ash is Bruce Campbell hamming it up for the camera the entire time he's in the film. The movie itself is a third film to the Evil Dead trilogy from director Sam Raimi. And at the end of the second one, Ash gets transported to medieval times. There, he has to help King and his court stop the Deadites, which are led by an evil version of Ash created by the Necronomicon, the worst book in history to take out of the library. With that being said, Bruce Campbell really does have fun with this part. He has some great one-liners, and some great practical joke moments that just scream out this is a fun movie. Much more than the original Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. Number 9. Jack Ferryman, Ghost Ship. Jack Ferryman is a character you really don't know much about at the beginning of the film, but when he does show up in his full glory, you are going to be hit. Jack Ferryman is what we call a collector. He uses various means to collect souls. As he says, for a lifetime of sin. What's great about this villain is you don't get the reveal until the end of the movie, until the last 20 minutes of the film. And he has really great moments with most of the cast. One of the best moments is the end when he's talking to Juliana Margulies' character, Epps. If you haven't seen this film, it is a fantastic film. Basically, a salvage crew comes across a derelict ship from the 1960s, a legendary lost ship known as the Antonio Grassa. And while on board, they are beset by all sorts of new supernatural occurrences, and culminating in this final moment of the movie. I highly recommend it. It is a fantastic film, has a fantastic cast, and we're going to talk more about it in our top 10 horror film video. That being said, number 9 was Jack Ferryman. Number 8, Silas Kritikos, 13 Ghosts. Now, F. Murray Abraham is no stranger to playing villains. He played Salieri in Amadeus. He's played Roafo in Star Trek Insurrection, which, it's an okay Star Trek film. But F. Murray Abraham really does do a fantastic job as playing a villain in this. From the moment he shows up on screen at the beginning of the film to the moment he shows up on screen at the end of the film, he just dominates the story. And F. Murray Abraham, that's a testament to him as an actor. He just embodied this role. And he has a lot of fun with it. He really does play up, I'm a very Machiavellian villain. Look at me. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Basically, Silas's nephew, Arthur, inherits a beautiful, although odd, glass mansion in the middle of upstate New York. While there, something happens to release all these ghosts. There are 13 of them. 12 of these most terrible ghosts. And it's up to Arthur to protect his family and get them out safely. We're going to talk more about that in another video. Needless to say, Silas is a fantastic villain. He's got that very unique way of saying things that make him even more of a terrifying villain. He's very slow, methodical, quiet. So as I said, number 8, Silas Kriticos. Number 7, Mr. Lincoln from Waxwork. This is more of an obscure horror film. I actually got introduced to it by my mom. And it is a fantastic horror film. Very over the top. Basically, the worst creatures in history have been given lifelike wax replicas. And these displays are secret doorways into little worlds. And if you die in that world, you become part of the display. And Mr. Lincoln needs, I believe it's 13 more souls. Or just a handful more souls to resurrect all these creatures and villains. He's played brilliantly by David Warner. And I definitely recommend it, especially when he interacts with Zach Galligan from Gremlins. It's a fantastic film, one of my personal favorites. So, Mr. Lincoln at number 7. Number 6, Sutter Kane in the Mouth of Madness. Sutter Kane is Mouth of Madness is a very interesting horror film on its own. It's very much inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. And Sutter Kane is very much an H.P. Lovecraft type character. Basically, and he's really not a villain per se, but he's the closest thing to a villain in that movie. Basically, Sutter Kane is an author who is one of the best-selling authors of this world, but he goes missing. And a publisher hires an insurance investigator to find him and bring him in. The insurance investigator is someone who specializes in debunking fraudulent insurance claims. And he's played brilliantly by Sam Neill. Well, Sutter Kane, who is played by the ever-amazing Jurgen Prochnow, pretty much reveals that he was laying the groundwork for these ancient demons to come out. And all it takes is one more major event to put them in the people's minds for them to believe them, where they'll show up. And it's a brilliant movie. It's got just a fantastic cast, and I'm going to be talking about that at a later time as well. But Sutter Kane is very cold, quiet. You don't actually have a lot of dialogue from him, except for like the last 30 minutes of the film. And he just really just messes with your head, just like the movie does. It's a John Carpenter film. I highly recommend it. And please, just check out these films. If you like them, great. Comment on the video. Tell me if you liked them after I recommended these films. Alright, number 5. The Clowns from Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Yes, I know this is kind of a cheat, but these are fantastic, over-the-top B-movie villains. And the concept of Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a little out there, but they really play with the concept. They do everything from using a dead cop as a puppet, like as an actual ventriloquist dummy, to feeding on people by turning them into cotton candy. It's one of the more bizarre horror films I've ever seen. And I'm going to talk about that one at a later time too. But yes, the clowns from Killer Clowns from Outer Space are grotesque. They're distorted. And they are absolutely one of the most interesting horror film villains I've ever seen. They're a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend the movie if you haven't seen it yet. Number 4, The Tall Man from Phantasm. What can I say about Phantasm? It's a horror film that my wife, who loves horror films, was terrified of after she watched it. The Tall Man is a very interesting character. I'm not going to go into detail about like the sequels that kind of give more backstory to him. But the Tall Man is the person who runs a funeral home in this small town where he is not human. And there's some great moments where the cinematography from Don Coscarelli is fantastic. But him, per se, is the villain, is done in such a way to actually be absolutely terrifying. There are scenes where he is just standing there quietly, and it's like, oh my god, this guy's absolutely terrifying. Angus Scrimm, who plays the Tall Man, had said previously this was one of his favorite roles, and he loves the fan reaction to him. And he doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue. He has like I'd say probably maybe 12 lines in the whole film. He has more lines in the sequels, but he only has about 12 lines in the whole film, give or take. And he is absolutely terrifying. There's a scene where he actually literally picks up a coffin one-handed and throws it into the back of a hearse. That immediately makes you go, whoa, that's not normal. So, number 4, The Tall Man. 3, The Beast from Poltergeist. Or The Old Man from Poltergeist. Either one can be used interchangeably. Here's a villain who showed up only mysteriously in the first film as that skull thing. Which there were actually plans to make the Old Man, or Kane I believe his name is, to be more of a presence. But they didn't get around to it. It didn't look right, so they ended up not using that scene. But when you're really introduced to him, it's in the second film. And I've never been more terrified of a gospel song than I have in Poltergeist 2. It's a fantastic film, absolutely terrifying villain. And just the way that the story's tension ratchets up to get more and more tense each scene. Because it starts off with like this cute little moments, and then it just kind of escalates from there. And the Beast really does bring that out. But like I said, the actor who played him, who sadly passed away from cancer several years ago, really does a fantastic job. And he is absolutely terrifying. So, The Beast is number 3. Number 2, Mr. Dark from Something Wicked This Way Comes. Mr. Dark is a very good villain, played by the ever-amazing Jonathan Pryce. One of his earliest roles that I've ever seen him in was in this film. Later be like Baron Munchausen and stuff like that. But he is such a great villain because he's so calm, methodical. Everything he does has a point. One of the more terrifying scenes of the film is he's confronting 2 little boys of the story. He's confronting their old man while their grandpa was looking for him. And he's tearing pages out of a book and they're disintegrating in front of him. And he's saying numbers, like ages. And he gets more and more intense as he does this scene. And truly makes it terrifying. Another great moment is when he's confronting James Robards' character, the father. And he's got the 2 boys tattooed on his hand because his tattoos move. And he's talking to him and he does this number and the hands start bleeding. And it's truly terrifying. And Jonathan Pryce, testament to his acting ability, he really just embodies this role. And this movie is actually based on a Ray Bradbury novel, which I do highly recommend. I do recommend the film. It's from Disney, which is weird because Disney back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s produced some really terrifying films. This and I believe The Witches was one of theirs, the original Witches, I think. And then like the Black Cauldron, really terrifying scenes that they produced. But yeah, so Mr. Dark, and number 2. And number 1, Pennywise. What can I say about Pennywise that hasn't already been said in, I think, 1,000 videos? Now I'm going to use both actors because both actors really do embody the darkness and the terrifying nature of the character. So first of all, Tim Curry played him in the TV movie back in the 90s. And really just did a fantastic job. Tim Curry really just embodied the part, and he had some of the best lines in the whole film. And then, of course, Bill Skarsgård, who played him in the newer films, absolutely nailed it. Both of them have elements of the character from the novel, but they both don't do it completely the same. Bill Skarsgård's performance is a little more subtle and a little more tension building, while Tim Curry's is over the top and doesn't waste any time trying to terrify you. If you haven't seen the miniseries or the 2-part live-action film, because there's 2 films in it, I highly recommend it. One of the best horror films I've ever seen, and I've seen plenty. I do recommend it, though. It's a fantastic film, a lot of fun.